You spend your whole life building a resume, a bank account, a legacy.
Yeah.
You construct this highly deliberate, like 5-year, 10-year, 20-year plan, basically treating your existence like a massive architectural project.
Right.
And the baseline assumption driving all of this is that value is something you have to actively manufacture from scratch.
Like you're starting with a blank slate.
Exactly. But what if the very act of building that, the ambition, the scrambling, the constant measuring, what if that is the exact thing making it worthless? What if our basic assumptions about success are actually like glitches in our operating system? Welcome to today's deep dive. We are jumping straight into a single, utterly fascinating source text today.
It really is.
It's an essay from 2011 by an author named Xu Feng,
Yep.
who's translated by Trans and edited by Career.
Mm-hmm.
And the title is just incredibly straightforward. It's called How to Realize the Value of Life.
Right. And before we unpack the mechanics of this philosophy, we do need to set a critical ground rule for you, the listener.
Yeah, that's important.
Because this text presents a very strict, highly spiritual worldview. It talks a lot about fulfilling the intention of the greatest creator. It warns heavily about being lured by devils and demons.
Very intense language.
Exactly. And it defines right and wrong in absolute, uncompromising terms. So our goal today is not to endorse these viewpoints,
Right.
nor is it to reject them or take a side in any kind of philosophical or political debate. We're simply going to impartially unpack the logic of the author's arguments. We want to understand the engine driving this worldview and see exactly how it challenges and honestly upends the modern secular values we just take for granted every day.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the core premise of this text starts with a concept that actually sounds pretty comforting on the surface, right?
Yeah, it does.
The idea that absolutely everything in the universe has value. The author states plainly that there is no waste in the cosmos. Every single thing has a purpose.
Right.
But the catch, and it is a massive catch, is how that value actually gets activated.
Yeah, because the activation relies entirely on a strict mechanism of cause and effect.
Okay.
The text argues that the fundamental value of any existence is to please the greatest creator. But the pathway to do that isn't through grand gestures or, complex moral gymnastics.
Right, it's simpler than that.
Much simpler. The only mechanism to unlock your value is by strictly observing the way of nature. So value isn't something you create. It is unleashed by complying with your inherent baseline design.
And the text grounds this in very tangible biological realities. It points out that, fruit trees bear fruit, flowers bloom,
Yeah.
hens lay eggs, the earth spins around the sun. Like, a flower doesn't sit around strategizing about how to be a better flower.
Now it just blooms.
It just blooms.
Yeah.
Because blooming is the physical and biological mandate of its existence. It's almost like the factory settings on a piece of hardware.
I like that analogy.
A device runs seamlessly when the software isn't trying to override the physical limitations of the hardware.
Exactly. And the text strips away all the moral complexity we usually attach to the concept of value. The creator's intention in this framework is simply for things to act according to their nature.
Wow.
But the philosophy introduces a severe mechanical consequence for deviation. The author explicitly states that any practices breaching the principles of nature are contrary to the creator's intention, and they will be punished by the law.
Wait, I struggle with that framing just a bit.
How so?
Well, when we hear punished by the law, it sounds like, I don't know, a lightning bolt from the sky.
Right, a divine retribution.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if a rooster tries to lay an egg or a hen tries to crow, what is the actual mechanism of that punishment?
It is the punishment of inherent friction.
Friction.
Yes. If a rooster attempts to lay an egg, it is expending massive amounts of caloric and biological energy on a physiological impossibility.
Wow, right.
So the punishment isn't a mystical judgment. It is the physical failure, the exhaustion, and the ultimate destruction of the rooster's actual inherent value. The universe corrects the deviation through mechanical failure.
So you basically burn out your engine trying to drive a boat on a highway.
That's exactly it.
That makes perfect sense when we were talking about farm animals or planetary orbits. I mean, they don't have the cognitive capacity to second-guess their factory settings.
Right.
But what is the human equivalent of a hen laying an egg? Like, how does a human just follow their nature?
Well, the author actually breaks down the human lifespan to explain this, defining a very specific natural human flow.
Okay, what does that flow look like?
The text argues that realizing human value requires moving through life stages without resistance. So you are supposed to live out childhood excitement during your childhood.
Makes sense.
You live out youthful charm when you are young, In midlife, you embody a middle-aged style. And in old age, you embrace calm restraint.
Wow.
If you flow naturally through these distinct phases, you activate your value.
But looking at modern society, we do the exact opposite at every single stage.
We really do.
We push toddlers into coding classes to accelerate their development, basically robbing them of that childhood excitement.
Right, we rush them.
And then when we hit middle age, we spend billions of dollars on anti-aging serums and procedures, desperately trying to artificially extend youthful charm.
Yeah, we resist the transition.
So the text implies that this constant resistance to our current chronological reality is the friction burning out our engines.
What's fascinating here is how the text identifies the root cause of that resistance, because the author blames devils and demons for luring humans into having ideas, requirements, and behaviors that exist outside of that natural flow.
Oh, wow. So the friction isn't accidental.
No, it is the result of external contamination.
Look, if you were listening to this on your commute to a job where you were desperately trying to get a promotion, this next part is, it's going to hit hard.
It really challenges everything.
It does. Because when the text lists the specific unnatural ambitions planted by these devils, it targets the foundational pillars of human society. The desire to achieve a career against the principles of nature, wanting to honor your ancestors. Unnatural.
It's wild to hear.
Bringing glory to your state or your group. Unnatural. Wanting to live high above others or be outstanding or win admiration. All of it violates the principles of nature.
It forces a complete reevaluation of what we consider virtue. I mean, in almost every global culture, bringing honor to your family or achieving a successful career are considered the pinnacle of a well-lived life.
Exactly.
But this text frames ambition not as a virtue, but as a severe destructive deviation from your biological and spiritual baseline.
Okay, I have to push back on this just a little bit.
Go for it.
A rooster laying an egg is a biological impossibility. But building systems, organizing societies, wanting to leave a legacy that feels uniquely, inherently human. Isn't it human nature to invent? I mean, look at all of human history. The drive to be outstanding seems baked right into our DNA.
Well, the text separates biological imperative from psychological ego.
Okay, how so?
Building a shelter to survive the winter is natural. Spending 80 hours a week away from your family to earn a title that makes a group of strangers admire you is a psychological construct. Wow.
Okay, yeah.
The author argues that the desire to be outstanding requires you to artificially elevate yourself above the collective ecosystem. It requires suppressing others or suppressing your own need for rest.
So it introduces that friction again.
Exactly. And the text also includes mystical ambitions in this category, condemning people who practice magic communications with spirits to predict fortunes or disasters.
Basically, any attempt to control the outcome.
Yes.
Whether you are trying to climb a corporate ladder to secure your financial future or trying to summon a deity to see into tomorrow, you are refusing to accept your current natural state.
You're pulling yourself out of the present.
You're trying to transcend your factory settings.
Right. Both the executive and the mystic are rejecting the present moment. They're stepping outside the flow of nature and inviting the exact same punishment of mechanical burnout.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
If grand societal ambitions are unnatural, the text has to apply this logic to our daily, granular lifestyle choices. And the author provides a highly specific list of unnatural practices that gave me absolute whiplash.
The list is uncompromising, and it requires us to deeply analyze the mechanism connecting these behaviors.
Yeah, because the author rattles off things you would fully expect in a critique of materialism.
Yeah.
You know, amassing millions, buying several villas,
Right.
having dozens of suits of clothing, driving luxury cars, or becoming famous.
All the standard critiques.
Right. But then, tucked right in the middle of this anti-materialism manifesto, the text explicitly condemns having a lifetime wife or husband.
Yep.
It condemns becoming a vegetarian or refusing to eat certain foods, and it condemns suppressing your nature to achieve an objective.
It creates a massive cognitive dissonance for the modern reader.
Absolutely.
Grouping a garage full of luxury cars with a 50-year marriage vow or a strict dietary choice seems totally chaotic until you look at the underlying physics of what the author is describing.
Let's just sit with that for a second. The idea that a lifelong marriage is an unnatural suppression of human nature. How does the text even connect a wedding vow to hoarding millions of dollars?
The connection is the concept of manufactured permanence and the artificial constraint of a naturally evolving organism.
Okay.
Humans are dynamic. Our biological needs, our emotional capacities, and our environments change radically over decades.
We aren't the same people at 50 that we were at 20.
Exactly. So a lifelong vow is seen as a rigid, artificial construct placed over a fluid organism.
Hmm.
It demands that you suppress your changing nature just to honor an objective you set in the past.
Ah, I see. And the same logic applies to the vegetarianism critique.
Yes.
You are ignoring the dynamic real-time needs of your physical body to adhere to a rigid mental rule you imposed on yourself.
Right. The text groups all of these things under the critique of what it calls commodity societies.
Commodity societies.
Yes. In a commodity society, secular values falsely equate the volume of your possessions, or the volume of your status, or the volume of your moral purity through strict diets, or even the volume of your lifelong contracts with the volume of your actual value.
So more is better, longer is better.
Right. But the text argues that this measurement is an illusion created by the greed and desire of devils pulling you away from the greatest creator's arrangement.
So literally any rigid structure you impose on your life,
Mm.
whether it's a financial portfolio, a dietary restriction, or a relational contract, is a departure from the Tao of nature if it requires you to suppress your current organic state.
Exactly.
Which brings us to a metaphor the author introduces that perfectly encapsulates the physiological cost of all this suppression. It is the story of the hoarding bird.
It translates the abstract philosophy into a very clear mechanism of cause and effect.
Yeah, the text asks us to imagine a bird flying in the forest. It twitters cheerfully, it eats the worms it needs for today, and it absolutely does not worry about whether it will have worms to eat tomorrow. That bird is living the Tao of nature. But then the author says, imagine if that bird spent its entire day catching worms, not to eat, but to build a giant warehouse to store them all. That bird would be violating nature.
And the absurdity of a bird building a warehouse really highlights the psychological and physiological damage of human hoarding.
It sounds exhausting.
It is. The natural bird lives entirely in the present tense. Its brain chemistry, its cortisol levels, its energy expenditure, they are all optimized for the exact moment it's currently experiencing.
While the unnatural bird is paralyzed by the burden of the future,
Exactly.
it is expending massive amounts of energy, generating chronic stress for a tomorrow that doesn't even exist yet. I mean, the bird might get eaten by a hawk tomorrow, but it spent its last day stressing over a warehouse full of rotting worms.
That is the physiological cost of ambition. The text points out that humans have shifted their entire existence from present tense living to a constant state of anxiety about a non-existent future.
Think about your calendar this week. Like, think about your 401k, your mortgage, your career trajectory.
Yeah.
We are all just birds building massive, stress-inducing warehouses for our worms. We spend 80% of our waking hours preparing for a future we can't even control, while completely ignoring the present moment we're actually living in.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the text notes that returning to nature is the strongest requirement and the loudest cry of the modern era.
You feel it.
We do. Beneath the ambition and the planning, there is a deep collective exhaustion. We are exhausted by the artificial demands of our commodity societies and the heavy warehouses we drive behind us.
So true.
But the text offers a solution to this exhaustion, though it requires a radical dismantling of the ego.
Right, because the directive is to be willing to be ordinary. Not exceptional, not outstanding, just ordinary.
The author provides a really beautiful contrasting set of images for this. Instead of striving to stand out, you should melt yourself like a drop of water in the sea. You should blend yourself like a tree in the forest. You should blossom harmoniously like one flower among thousands of other flowers in a valley.
It reminds me of a symphony orchestra.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if you are sitting in the violin section and you suddenly decide you want to be outstanding, you might start playing a completely different, louder solo over the rest of the orchestra.
Right.
You are certainly standing out. You are achieving a personal objective.
Hmm.
But you are completely ruining the music.
Mm-hmm.
The only way the symphony works is if you look at the sheet music in front of you, accept your specific role, and play your ordinary part perfectly in time with everyone else.
That analogy captures the exact mechanics of the text's philosophy. Standing out inherently causes dissonance. It requires unnatural friction. Blending in, melting into the collective ecosystem is the only way to eliminate that friction and produce actual harmony.
So what does this all mean for you? If we throw out the bank account, the resume, the legacy, the strict dietary rules, and the admiration of our peers?
It's a lot to throw out.
It is. If we completely abandon the metrics society gave us, how does this text say we measure our success? How do you know if your drop of water has successfully melted into the sea?
Well, the author provides a final definitive metric, and it is based entirely on the energetic output of your existence.
Okay.
It comes down to the ripple effect you create. If you, simply by existing in your natural state, bring harmony, entertainment, and blessings to others, to society, and to nature, you have proven that you have realized your value.
The metrics are harmony, entertainment, and blessings.
Yes. Conversely, if your existence brings trouble and pain to others, if your ambition disrupts society, or if your hoarding brings harm to nature, you have failed to realize your value as a human being.
Wow.
And the ultimate reward for passing this test, for successfully adopting the Tao of nature, is that you will enjoy the favor and grace of the greatest creator, and you will return to your homeland of heaven.
It's just a staggering demand disguised as a simple life. The tension of this text is immense.
It really asks a lot.
It asks us to abandon the deepest, most ingrained drives we have been taught to value, to let go of wealth, to drop our obsession with legacy, to release our rigid vows and constraints, all just to become an ordinary, harmonious drop in the ocean.
Right. It requires a total ego death of the modern individual. And that leaves us with a critical question to ponder. If the ultimate goal of life is to simply observe our nature, not suppress it, we have to look deeply at ourselves.
Yeah.
Is the human drive to build, to strive, to innovate, and to conquer actually our version of the bird catching the worm? Is our ambition an inescapable biological mandate? Or have we, as a species, simply spent the last 10,000 years building incredibly complex, completely unnecessary warehouses? Keep questioning the warehouses you're building this week. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive, and we will catch you next time.